Hi everybody, my name is Musashi and I'm the chef de cuisine at Restaurant Yuu. Today I'm here with Food52 to cook red snapper with tomato stew and pepper fume. It has a couple of components. We have some stewed beans, a pepper fume, a pepper puree, and a tomato cream. We're also going to fry some nori chips later and cover it with cured egg yolk. I'm gonna start with the beans because that's going to take the longest. This is a pretty standard way of cooking beans. You can even do this at home. I'm using cranberry beans that I picked up from the farmer's market this morning. We have some neutral oil. I'm gonna heat it up in our pot here. Compared to other beans, I find that cranberry beans are quite meaty. They don't disintegrate as easily if you overcook them by accident. We're gonna add our mirepoix plus a piece of garlic, half of garlic, a little thing of celery, bit of carrot, and half a shallot. It's okay if the pan is kind of cold in the beginning. You don't want this too hot, otherwise it's gonna burn your aromatics. I work at Restaurant Yuu, which is a French-Japanese fine dining restaurant. If it means anything to you, we have a Michelin star. We try to highlight classical French technique while using Japanese ingredients. Our head chef, Chef Yuu, worked at Guy Savoy, which is a 3 Michelin in France. And so he takes a lot of inspiration from his time there. Once that's colored, we're gonna add some chicken stock here. We're gonna add our beans, and then we're gonna add some thyme and rosemary for flavor. And then we're also just going to season this with salt. That way when the beans are cooking, it's going to flavor the inside of the beans and not just the outside when you season this when it's done. Started working at Restaurant Yuu. In that time, I've been developing a lot of items on the menu. It's been really nice to have this task set for me, and it's forcing me to go to the market even more. I like to talk to the farmers and figure out what's coming the next season, what's peak, what's kind of waning, trying to wean all that information, try to give guests the best produce possible. You can't make great food with mediocre produce. It really all starts with the raw ingredient, and so trying to find the best version of those raw ingredients is a big part of what being a chef is, I think. This is nicely seasoned. I'm gonna cover this with a paper lid. It's called a cartouche. And this is going to help it keep all that flavor inside, but also reduce the amount of evaporation. And so I'm not constantly refilling this with chicken stock as it reduces. I'll start the tomato stew. So this is a Canestrino tomato, also picked up from the farmer's market. It's a special variety coming out of Norwich Farms. This is made specifically for sauces. It has this perfect level of sweetness and tartness and acidity that a lot of chefs love. I'm going to start this sauce. I'm just gonna crush it with my hands. What that's gonna do is help break up all the cell walls, and it's going to help release more of that flavor. Now I'm going to season this with a little bit of salt in the beginning to also help release more of that water. Now that we have our beans and tomatoes going, I'm going to start the pepper puree, which is going to be a blend of pickled peppers, pickled shallots, and fresh peppers. Japanese French is really up to the head chef's interpretation. It also depends on the region. There are Japanese French restaurants in Japan, there are Japanese French restaurants in France. At Restaurant Yuu, it is more of a French spin and trying to use Japanese products like Japanese sea bream, for instance. Like a lot of the fish that we use at the restaurant is being flown in from Japan. I'm gonna process these peppers now. Just take off the stem and the seeds. Cut it in half like this, and then you can just take the stem off like that. And so you're not wasting any of this top portion. These red and orange ones are cornito peppers. These are habanada peppers. These were developed by Cornell University in collaboration with Row 7 Seed Company. These are habaneros without the spice, hence the name habanada. I like to use a lot of them to highlight that kind of levity and tropical flavor. And none of these peppers are spicy. Although sometimes you do get a slightly spicy habanada. I don't know why that is, but it just happens and it's a little kick. I'm just going to coarsely chop these peppers. I'm gonna add it to the blender. Don't have to be super careful. It's all gonna get pureed. You wanna blend this until it's pretty much kind of liquefied. You don't wanna see any solid chunks in there. It's almost like a gastrique because it's very vinegar forward. That's going to intensify as we reduce it and turn it into a paste. I'm gonna prep some kohlrabi next. We're going to dice this very, very fine. And that's gonna be a textural component of the tomato stew. Kohlrabi is kind of similar. It's not the same family, but kind of try to explain it as like daikon almost. Very watery, and it has this very crunchy texture to it. What I'm gonna do is peel the exterior because it's very fibrous. If you're in New York, I highly recommend visiting the Union Square Farmers Market. They're there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Saturday. Check it out. Meet your local farmers, make friends. Shout out to Pete at Norwich Farms. And this is mostly for texture. I think texture is really important in a dish. And I learned that when I was working at Alto Boy. We would do these monthly tastings for Chef JP. He always emphasized texture, always having some kind of like crunchy element. And there's always various degrees of crunch that you can add to a dish, but something that kind of excites the palate, breaks up the monotony of a puree or a sauce, I think is really important. Nicely reduced. What you want to do is evaporate a lot of the water content out of it. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to push this through a fine sieve. That's going to prevent any seeds and skin from going into our sauce. There's still a bit of water content here, so I'm going to evaporate that down a little bit more. What I'm going to do before I turn on the heat is I'm going to weigh this, put in half the weight in heavy cream, and then reduce that a little bit more. We have 60 grams here. We're just going to add 30 grams of cream. So we're going to let this ride a little bit longer until it's a bit thicker. I'm going to chop some herbs now. This is going to go at the very last second into the stew to add another dimension of flavor and also a little bit of color, a little bit of greenery on the plate. Even though it's going to be mostly covered, it's kind of nice to still see like speckles of freshness. My spidey senses are tingling right now. I think the beans are almost done. Yeah, perfect. It's about 40 minutes on the stove. We're gonna take it off and we do our final seasoning as it cools, and we're also gonna take out our aromatics. That way it's just easier to scoop out the beans when you need them later. And we're gonna store the beans inside this liquid because it's super flavorful. For this dish, we're only going to use the beans, but you can save the broth and send it out for a family meal if you want. Or if you can find a way to clarify it, you could use it in another dish like a consommé. It's not a bad idea. Final seasoning for this broth is just some pepper and a touch of sherry vinegar. This is gonna help round out the richness of the broth. Yeah, that's really nice. So we're gonna put the cartouche back on so everything's nicely covered. And we're gonna let that cool off to the side. I know this is ready when it's really thick like this. I'm just gonna season this now. So we've got some parsley, chives in here already. The trick to cutting fine herbs is to do a very fine chiffonade. What you want to do is slice the herbs and not crush them. Now what I'm gonna do is fry these nori chips. We make this rice paste at the restaurant. It's actually a recipe that we got from Alto Boy and Alto Mix. It is rice flour, water, salt, and sugar, and we just cook it down into a paste consistency. We put it on a non-stick silpat mat and then dehydrate it overnight. And then you get these little chips. Whenever you fry something, you should always have everything you need at the ready. I have a landing pad here with paper towel. Got my chips, obviously. Oil is ready to go. And then my grating garnish is a cured egg yolk with a microplane. I'm gonna fry this. Tweezers are super useful. I used to be anti-tweezer, but I see the utility and the usefulness of them now. So what you wanna do is cover them completely like this. We've got our pepper puree, we've got our tomato, and we've got our beans. We also have our kohlrabi mix. We're gonna add our herbs at the very end here. What I'm going to do is just take a little bit of each. There's no recipe for this mix. And if you want it to be a little more stewy or tomatoey or peppery, just add more of one component. I like to think of this tomato as adding this umami unctuousness element to it, and then the pepper is gonna bring that nice acidic kick. And then the tomatoes are just also very umami rich and meaty. Should look somewhat like this. What I have here is a pepper fume, pepper juice that we reduced down by half, and then adding equal parts fish stock reducing that by half again, and then adding heavy cream, and then reducing that by half. Super concentrated, super peppery, fishy, and it has this like creamy unctuousness to it. We're gonna add a little bit of soy lecithin to it to help it foam. It's basically just a thickener. We want it to foam because it is a visual element. It's gonna add some airiness to the bite. I think there's already a lot of texture involved in the dish. We have like the texture of the beans, the kohlrabi, the chips. I don't think we want to weigh down the dish anymore, and so that's why I decided to foam it. I know foaming can be kind of frou-frou and frivolous, and it looks kind of silly on the plate sometimes. It's like, why are they using a foam? But I think for this application, it makes a lot of sense because there are a lot of heavier elements on the plate. And now we're going to prepare the fish, which is the final element. A lot of people used to ask me how I got good at butchering fish, and they assume it's because my parents own a sushi restaurant. But actually, when I worked there, my dad was really particular with the way he wanted his fish cut, and so I wouldn't really handle the fish there that much. It was only in my previous job and in Japan that I handled a lot of fish and kind of got comfortable with it. So that's kind of like the irony of growing up in a sushi restaurant. So I'm going to just portion one piece here. This is going to shrink a little bit in the pan. Don't want it to be too small. Got our oil here. Fish away from you as you're dropping it. And then immediately pressing down so the skin has complete contact with the pan. Fish is one of those things I feel like you need to cook a lot of to get it right. You have to feel it. Well, we've got this really nice sear on this side. We're just going to finish this very quickly in the oven. The very last second here, we're gonna add our herbs, some black pepper. Right here, our tomato stew mix on the bottom. Got our pepper fume. To finish, I've just got a little bit of lemon thyme oil. And then to finish, we've got our nori chips. There it is, we have our red snapper with tomato stew and pepper fume. Yeah, it's great. I love the beans. It's really comforting. Thanks for cooking with me today, guys. You can see me at Restaurant Yuu. You can also see me online at Made by Musashi. We're on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram.